Welcome, everyone, to the Socket podcast. Today, I have the honor of having a good friend of mine on. Her name is Danielle Dahn. She is a financial advisor with Savant Wealth Management, and she and I go way back. How are you doing today, Danielle?
I'm good, Dr. Cathy. Thank you.
Good. Danielle and I met through the Chamber of Commerce, I think specifically through the YPN, the Young Professionals. I have since aged out. I don't believe you have because you're
If
older.
you were young and professional back in the
and we met and became friends, and over the past decade or so have become better friends, and so I knew when I wanted to talk about financial issues that she would be one of my go-to women that I was going to bring on the podcast. So thank you so much for making the time and for joining us today.
Absolutely. This is fun. Thanks for having me. And I'm happy to help wherever I can with my expertise. And I think you're not only a very intelligent woman, but you're the most emotionally intelligent person I know. So I'm
No,
looking forward to
thank
this.
you. Thank you. That's a huge compliment. I really appreciate that. So, Danielle, tell us a little bit about how you got into the field, what brought you to where you are today.
Okay, yeah, good question. So if you're going to listen to someone speak about money, you should probably know that they're qualified to be sharing what they're doing.
For sure.
But yeah, so a little bit of background about myself. So I am someone who's been in financial services for about 20 years now. And essentially what I would share about that is I'm a woman in my early 40s. I'm a mother to two children, and that's really a huge driving force, two teenage boys in my life. But above and beyond that, I'm multifaceted, but my passion is in personal finance. And I've always been a financial planner. So it began years ago. I always say I went to both of the Big Ten schools in Illinois. So I went to undergrad at the University of Illinois, and I worked at a local brokerage firm as an intern while I went to school. And I really started to learn about the ropes of the business. And then I took a class that was a capstone class focused on wealth management. It was sponsored by a financial planning arm of Goldman Sachs, and they had a case study. There's several hundred students. I just really got into it. I won several $100s. It was great. That was a lot of money when I was looking for a grandma's $20 bill that would show up in the mail, every other month, and you're trying to get enough money to go out and for the night. But essentially, it just sparked a fire in me. So I've always had a passion for that. I've pursued my CFP. I'm a certified financial planner. And then I just value education. I'm constantly reading up on tax risk, investment management. I'm part of many study groups. When my boys were babies, and one of the things I'm most proud of, my youngest I was pregnant with him when I started pursuing taking the GMAT. And when he was a newborn, I took it. And by the time he was 9 months old, I started going to school at Northwestern. So I had a full-time job,
Wow.
had two babies, and then I went to school 2 nights a week. So I don't live my life like that. I'm no longer crazy, but but I very much love finance and everything about it. And I just love my job. It's taking a whole bunch of topics. The breadth and depth is so wide and far, and it's taking things that are complex and making them simple.
Yeah.
Help people take and make good choices, good financial decisions, and take actions. And the last thing I'd say is my client relationships. It's like family. We've been together. It's so rewarding. And I specifically work in a firm where I'm a fiduciary. So in my business, that means I always have to put your best interest first.
Yeah.
And I love that because I live my life always try to do the right thing. Like when I'm trying to decide which path, what decision, it's always what is the right thing. And that's congruent with my career. And I feel very blessed. I love what I do. So anything I can share to help you and your followers or anything, I'm happy to do so. Oh, and I am supposed to, if you don't mind, I am supposed to share one thing because I am a registered investment advisor. I do have to share that anything we discuss today, it's meant to be providing general information, right? And I would say the same thing if you're coming in for a meeting. Please consult with your financial professional because just the breadth and depth of what we do, you need your specific ideas before implementing for yourself. And then Savant Wealth Management, my employer, is a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And you can find additional information at www.savantwealth.com to find more information about our firm. So then that makes me as a compliant individual. So
there we go. I know I have had did a TV show called The Moms Network, and we had another financial planner come on, and we had to kind of write up a contract and let them know what we were talking about and what would, what was going on, So my dad is a financial planner. He's been in practice for 50 years. So
so
I
cool.
know, you spoke about that family feel, and I know he's getting at the upper end of his career, and I know that he is not looking forward to, retiring. He wants to, and then he doesn't, type of thing. And the way you spoke about doing the right thing and being able to help people and trying to make something that's uber complex more understandable, and then building that family-like relationships with your clients, I would say that's exactly how I feel about being a chiropractor and running a practice.
Okay.
It's just like I have a newer associate doctor, and we had a couple things come up. Someone was upset about something. I'm like, you know what, just refund their money. I'll call them, and at the end of the day, I'm like, if someone's not happy with their care for some reason, I'm not going to keep their money. And so she sent me a text and she just said, I just love that you always do the right thing. I've had to make a refund in 23 years of practice. I've refunded maybe 8 things ever. It's anyway, we could get off on a little tangent about that. So, but I know we are here to talk about some people's favorite topic and some people's scariest topic, I would say. Depends on where you are on the spectrum. Throughout my life, I have been in the woohoo mode, and I've been in the oh no mode. So I have definitely seen some ups and downs in my financial life, based off of many different things. Like you said, every person there's so many details, and so as I rolled out the 12 elements of health, which I've spoken about on the podcast before, this year, I brainstormed with a couple of people, including my best friend. What are the 12 elements? If I'm going to say these are the 12 elements of health, what are the top 12 topics that I think we as human beings should be on top of, and making sure are healthy in our lives to live our best life, to thrive? And so I sent what I thought was my final 12 to my best friend, Emily. And I said, I feel like I'm missing something. What am I missing? And immediately she texted me back and she said, you're missing financial health. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
because, having strong financial health provides security and comfort and decreased stress. And if you're not sure where your money's at, or you are not planning well, or you don't even know where your money is at, or you don't even know, how am I doing? How in debt am I? I mean, some people really are at a place where they're not even comfortable looking and understanding the reality. And I certainly went through one of those periods of that phase of, I didn't even want to look at it because I knew it was scary. And my dad helped at that time, kind of just, hey, let's just tackle it. You show me everything, let's just tackle it, right? Whatever it is, it is. Whether or not you know it or not doesn't make it any less or not true. Anyway, so we launched the 12 elements of health, and July's element is financial health. And I knew I wanted to bring a financial planner, financial advisor on to just discuss some kind of just high level basics of what are the things we need to be thinking of? What are the things that we need to make sure we have set up and planned right now or in the future, and just have a great conversation so that we can share some resources so people understand, oh, I have this, and this checked off, but man, I really need to get on the ball and make sure that I have this covered. So to start with, I think talking about how much money do we need in an emergency fund? For myself, sometimes I've had 0 in an emergency fund. And right now I would say I probably have a little too much in an emergency fund, because with COVID and being a business owner, it scared me a little bit. It was, I have two businesses and they both were drastically affected by it. So for me, I'm like, I'm going to err on the side of having a little too much in the bank right now, just because I want to make sure that I'm okay. But that's from a business standpoint, business side. So from your perspective, how should someone judge that for themselves?
You kind of took me through the gamut of what I already see, which is perfect. So too much or too little. I'd say it depends on you think of your own personal situation first. Are you a contract employee? Are you someone who's full-time employed? Do you have steady work? And the answer is somewhere generally around 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
If work for you is less consistent, right, you want to be further on it. And then I'll also argue if you're someone near retirement, it's even healthier to get that number up to a year. So
Okay.
you can be more flexible about when you draw down your money.
Yes.
But I see the same things as what you say. So too little, one argument is people just consume money, or another thought process is I don't make any money on that. And I've been having this conversation for a decade now. Interest rates are low.
Yeah.
They have been low. Your emergency fund, the whole purpose is not to make you money.
Right.
It's opportunity cost. So you're not going in and selling something. So you're not putting yourself in a financial position that's challenging just because of something that's going on in your life that was unforeseen. It's an emergency fund. So it needs to exist. And then I've seen individuals that just have so much in the way of cash that it's unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
So you can lose your money safely and slowly. So that's inflation will eat away at that. So you need a reasonable amount so that you can write out various scenarios, whether that be market conditions or your employment or what's going on with your business. Those types of things are really important. And you can't do anything else until you have that step in place. So
Yep.
That's step one.
That's step one, right? Make sure. So I'm sure some people are all excited. Let's say they're newly out of college and they're starting to make some money and they're, paying their student loan debt and all this stuff. And then they're like, oh, I want to put all of this aside and invest it right away. But you're always like, step one, let's create this, make sure you're there.
Yes, it starts with the word emergency. So you don't know, you don't know when you're going to need it. And I've seen enough scenarios where people think they don't need it, and it doesn't work out that way. So please just set some money aside, and then tackle those debts, tackle your savings. Then you're financially fit. If you skip that step, no.
Yeah. It's hard because, like you said, it is so complex, and it's nice to have some direction. Be like, all right, step one, let's do this.
Step one, 3 to 6 months. Go for that.
Okay, 3 to 6 months. We're going to move on to retirement, planning for retirement, I would say. I know that I wish I had started earlier. The whole compound interest thing. I mean, what we are doing with my boys, mostly thank you to my ex-husband, to be honest with you. He's just done such a great job of helping to educate them financially and take them to classes on financial planning. And it's been impressive to watch. So I appreciate my ex-husband for that. But when you're starting at that high level of retirement planning, where does that start you off? What are the first couple of things that come to mind?
Yeah, well, first of all, knowing that having your money work for you, and when you start seeing it work for you, it's amazing. So you said compound interest.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein called that the eighth wonder of the world. And it's true. Don't you want your money to be working for you, right? And so that you're eventually not working for it. So that's just an amazing feeling. So I think it's an age-old question, and it's so particular to your lifestyle. How long are you going to live? The types of accounts you have, because if you have everything in a pre-tax retirement account, you're going to have a very different tax bill than someone who has money in an after-tax brokerage account and a Roth account that comes out tax-free. Yep. Your after-tax account is going to be lesser capital gains. So all these different things, how long is your life expectancy, are unique to you. But there's some good rules of thumb. So if you're someone who's 30 years of age, the goal is to have 1 times your salary put away. So okay. We'll call it total income, because if you have a nice bonus in there too, please include it.
Okay.
And then by the time you're 40, you need to have 3 times put away.
Okay.
Okay. 50, you need to have 6 times put away. 60, 8 times. And then if you're retiring around full retirement age for Social Security, which is 66, 67 years of age, you need to have a good 10 times your salary. So
Okay.
that is a very large number. The way you chip away at that is starting early, like you said. And if you failed to start early, don't let that be a reason not to start today, right? The most important thing is to start right away. Let your money work for you.
Yep.
And a good goal is to save 15 to 20% of your income.
Okay.
And so a common question about that is, what if my employer matches my money and things like that? Well, that's a reason you negotiate with employers, or you seek out different one employer over another is for benefits. So that's actually part of that number. So between you and your employer, if you can get that amount of money put away, you're doing a really good job for yourself. So that's really important. And again, I would say once you get those retirement accounts started, start building up different types of accounts. I read something years ago and I really believe this. I wish I could like put it on every financial website. If you log into your account, this is what I'd have you do.
Yeah.
It's like the Face app, and it's your picture and then you in 30 years, you in 40 years, you in 50 years. And people save more when they see that they're putting the money away for themselves. Yep. So anything that you can put away, and then I want to see it, if your future self, if you're retired, you're going to want not only diversification in the types of stocks and bonds you own, but you want different types of accounts so you can hedge taxes. You need to be really thoughtful about this, and you will be patting yourself on the back in the future and be thankful that you did some planning as opposed to just, oh, this is what I got, now what do I do with it?
For sure.
You can be really smart about once you're actually retired, and if you are retired, when you take that money out, studies show you can extend your drawdown period, you can draw down more funds by years if you have a well thought out strategy about what bucket am I drawing from, when, how much, the timing, how much risk in each of these different buckets based on the tax treatment. So the point is, start, put it away, let it grow. Get something. The last piece I'd add about it is you need to get something that you're comfortable with for investing, that you will stay the course. So where people really hurt themselves is they make emotional decisions. And there's so many studies out there. You can Google Dalbar study, and the average investor makes about half of what someone who buys and holds, because we naturally want to buy things when things are hyped and we're getting excited, and we want to sell when we're freaking out, right? And that's the worst thing you can do. And it's hard to recover from. So you want to get in front of that and get enough stocks in your portfolio, whatever percentage that is, that you're comfortable that when things get rough out there, that you're going to continue and stay the course. Because things decline, on average, the market is going to have a correction, which is defined as a decline of 10% or more within, every 2 years. So this is going to happen. And with all these meme stocks and this craziness going on in the market this year, that's a whole separate conversation. But I've had conversations with clients' children that were day trading and all these, you can talk about stories. But the argument is that it's a different, this time around is different. It's not different. There's a different catalyst or something that's causing it, but it's not different, right? So diversify. You have winners, you have losers. Put your money away, get something you're comfortable with so that things are going to go up and down, and you need to just ride it out, is basically my answer. And that's how you're going to put yourself in a really good spot. And I'd say the last thing I'd say about that is budgeting. So many people are like, how much do I need? And they're completely overwhelmed. You can use apps such as mint.com and all kinds of things that aggregate and track your spending in details. I have a way to make it simpler, because I know people are often overwhelmed. So essentially, if you're not saving this money, it's either going to taxes or you're spending it, right? So you start with how much you make, and then you estimate how much is going out the door for taxes. What are you saving? And voila, whatever is left, I'm sorry, if you're not saving, it's being spent, right? There you go. You're done. Because people could get paralyzed with how much was my cable bill? How, and just just have a plan. Get started on it. Don't delay acting. Okay.
Well, and I have a couple things to say about all that. Number one, I would say that is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic commercial for hiring a financial advisor.
Oh,
right. I mean, no, but it really is, because, you talk about those things and all of the different options and how old you are and how much money you make. And, for myself, I have businesses that come into play, right? I'll have businesses I can either sell or hang on to and hire someone and still be able to draw some sort of revenue off of, right? So that comes into play. And how early did you start? And, as you get older, making sure, like you said, being diversified so that when the market does do that correction, it's not hitting you at the wrong time, because we can always know that the market's going to take some dips and go up and down. And so I think it's really important to have someone that truly understands everything looking through. Some people are wicked smart and they are self-trained. I have a couple of friends that they do their own financial planning, and I think, you know what? You've got it going on. Like you really understand this, because they're self-learners and they take in lots of information and can, put that all into the right categories and understand it at a very deep level. But for most people like myself, I want to be able to say, here, this is the money I want to invest. And, I've always invested with my dad, and he'll be like, do you want me to explain things? I'm like, no, I trust you. I'm not a detail orientated person. So for me, the thought process of learning a lot more about what I know, the kind of like the baseline, I don't want to do that. So anyway.
Oh, no, you're spot on. Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? That's what you just described. That is like a chart that you would outline, that when you know that you accept that you don't know a lot about something, so your confidence in it does not exist, right? So you seek out help. Then there's people in the middle that know a little bit, so they think they know everything. The ones that hurt themselves. Then as you become more expert, you become less confident because you realize what you don't know. Right. So I'd say there's people when you become expert, I have sat in front of one Nobel Prize winner. I love that. Yeah. I have individuals who've written personal finance textbooks as clients, because I can point out a couple of things with them. And there's a woman that I adore that wrote exam questions for the CPA.
Wow.
And so it's not even, I don't know anything about this. It's so much more than that. So regardless of your situation, I feel confident I can always poke holes in 2 or 3 things and add significant value. So I'm just explaining it covers all dynamics.
Well, and sometimes you're too close to it, right? One of my associate doctors, Dr. Christine, she does not like adjusting her own children. She's like, I'm just too close to them. So one of her daughters got hurt, and she already gone to the, the ER or the urgent care, and it wasn't like nothing was broken or anything like that, but she was limping. And they were like, oh, it should go away. And it's a week later, and she still is having the significant limp. And we already knew nothing structural was going on. So she's like, I don't like adjusting my own kids. I went over, I adjusted her. Within 5 minutes, it was 80% gone. Her pelvis was just off, which was causing a little limp. And sometimes we're just too close to it, right? Sometimes we need someone who is an objective party that can see things a little clearer. So I agree with that.
Agree. Okay, great.
And then the other thing that came to mind was I had patients that I saw for years, this couple, wonderful people, and they were about 65 when they, it was probably about 5 years ago that they moved to Florida. And they came in and they're like, they were so proud. They both retired. They had been saving. And I was like, man, I'm behind I feel like I'm a little behind the 8 ball. And they're like, well, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 41. And so it must have been 6 years ago. And they're like, do you want to know something? We had 0 saved at 41, 0. And we're 65. And we then sat down, made a plan. And they said, we bought this beautiful home. It's not overly extravagant, but I'm on Facebook with them, like living vicariously, and they are so freaking happy. And they golf and they go to, beach bars, and they're like, and we are completely set up because we took the time to make sure that we made that plan.
That's a perfect example. So not having started is not a reason for not starting today, right? You have to get started.
That's what they said. They're like, start today. I've been through all these ups and downs financially with the practice, and at one point was pretty gutted. So I had to kind of start over. But you know what? Doing a lot better now. So that's the good news. So as far as, so you're saying, I like the one-time salary at 30, the 3 times at 40, the 6 times at 50. I like that. That's great. I've never heard that laid out like that, because it can get really complicated.
Exactly. There's rules of thumbs, and I can tell you a million reasons why and where those don't work, but there's a place to start. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to education, your children's education. One thing my dad has always said is he's seen many, many, many of his clients lose their retirement to fund their child's education.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what you feel about that, but I certainly think that's something to ponder.
Yes, I've seen the same story. I've seen families spend 7 figures on education, and I've seen, yeah. So, but
Wow.
we shouldn't start with that because you can plan and not be that family, right? There's also other families that do the complete opposite and have wonderful children who do great things, and
Yeah.
it's all about your family's dynamics. And the family that spent $1 million, I personally don't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But it's what's important to you. But essentially, I would say that it's really important to save for the goal. And so I start with that in mind because I hear so many misunderstandings about college savings, that if I save money, it's going to penalize my children for getting financial aid. And there's formulas, there's ratios. There's no reason not to save.
Okay.
And people also get hung up on the fact that, well, if I save in a 529 and my student doesn't go to college, if they get a scholarship, if they go to school out of state, it doesn't work. No, that's not correct. So there's just some misunderstandings there. So I'd say if I call a 529 plan is the most common way to save for college. So and this is a no-brainer. I'm an investment professional and it's a no-brainer for me too. Set up the account and it's called age-based. You select the little button and it gets you a diversified portfolio, index funds, and it changes as the kids get closer to college age. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Oh, when I started this, my children, you had to wait 3 months to get their Social Security cards, and then you can open the account. So, I'm going back from maternity leave, and first thing I got to do is get my 529 account. And I did not have a lot of money then. I was young and in my early 20s at that time. And above and beyond that, I pursued my master's degree, which was expensive. My spouse did as well. And he didn't work during that time. We only had one income. But when you have a child who's a newborn versus not going to school to 18, that's almost 2 decades of savings. So every little gift from grandma and grandpa, every little dollar that they got went directly in the account. And let me tell you, it absolutely adds up over time. So you can use those accounts. And if I get the plan in Illinois, I get a state of Illinois tax deduction. That's awesome. If I live in another state, I can look and see if my state has a tax deduction. Otherwise, I look nationally. But essentially, those monies grow in a tax deferred way. If my child goes to school in Georgia, fine, the money works just the same. It grows tax deferred, they take it out. They go to school in Australia, fine. It was higher ed, trade schools, all of that's included. If they get a scholarship, I can take out an amount equal to the scholarship, and I have to pay taxes on what the money earned, but there's no penalty.
Yep.
The taxes, I'm still ahead. Alternatively, I would have saved that money and been paying taxes along the way. I was at least able to defer it for 2 decades. That's a win. So I'm still ahead. And then if my child doesn't go to school, I have the ability to send it to siblings, to other members of the family. There's so many things I could do. In the worst case scenario, I pay a 10% penalty on the earnings. So for my tax deferred growth, if I'm at 7, I make 6.3, I still win. So where I'm going with this is you need to put money away, and people just don't understand those nuances and feel like they'll lose their money, which is true. So there's 2 plans that are savings plans in Illinois. One you can set up yourself. They're called Bright Directions and Bright Start. The Bright Start plan you can start yourself, and it's so easy and so straightforward. Just put the money in there. Every gift you get, you can put money away. Start early. And there's so many different options you can put money away. There's a plan called You Promise that's been out there forever that does like rebates for college savings, and they have a credit card that I found a credit card recently that pays even more than that. I get 2% cash back. So there's my free rewards, and every 2% I get, that's free money. I put it directly in the kids' 529 account.
That's great.
If you have a business like yourself, put those expenses on that card. You're never paying tax on that money, and you put it directly in there. It's fantastic. So I'd say about college, it's very important to plan and think about it. Like your ex-husband, and your father. I'm a financial planner, so my kids can tell. Hopefully they don't describe them as horror stories later, but we've had whiteboard sessions in my living room where it's your children don't have experiences that you do. You can tell them things, but they haven't experienced themselves. So start asking them questions. So when I ask them questions about, okay, what are you going to do when you grow up? The first answer is, I'm going to be an NFL kicker. This is both boys. Oh, you're going to be an NFL kicker? And then it's, Mom, you don't think I can do that? I don't think we're doing that. That's not what we're planning for, but I'm still trying to be encouraging. They're trying to catch me, right?
Right.
So then eventually it's like, I want to be an architect. Okay, you want to be an architect. What are you going to make as an architect? $100,000. You are? Look that up. Yeah, they have them Googling on their phones, right? And they come back with some number 70, 80, 90. Okay, is that what a new person out of college gets as an architect? Probably not. Okay, your number's 50, right? So write the number on the board. How much do you pay in taxes? This is where their jaws drop. And I write that line item, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going to live? I'm going to live in Chicago. How much is your rent? They look that up. We put the number on there, and we're just going through the line items, and they're like seeing all their money because they thought they were going to be so wealthy, right? So all their money is disappearing, and they're down to like $400 left a month. And I run the numbers, and you can find all kinds of calculators, but examples about, okay, if you take student loan debt, you pay it back over 10 years, right? You know, $20,000. I don't know. Is that going to be a couple $100 a month you got to pay? You have $400 left over. You have these debts. Eventually want a car. How are you going to save up for a car if you only have $200 a month? And then your jaws are just dropping. So the point of that, why I say that is because they have all of these dreams, and their dreams should incorporate cost. They should be aggressive in pursuing scholarships. They should be realistic about, this is what I'm going to earn outside of school, so that you're not taking on debt that becomes unaffordable, right? So all of those decisions are very important. Put it away as early as possible. I'd say a big thing about young children is teaching them the value of money. So let them screw up too. Let them accumulate the money and buy something that disappoints them. Let them have the heartache of wanting something but not have enough for it. Put their money in such a way that they can actually see it accumulating. There's lots of neat toys that do things like this. Put 50% away for you to spend, and then 20% in savings, and then another 20% to charity, and 10% for just fun or whatever your family comes up with, right? So have these different goals and let them get excited about it, and let them screw up so that they learn the value of a dollar. If you have an entrepreneurial kid, get them out there on the streets with their lemonade stand from the time that they're little. I have a son right now who hustles in the way of selling shoes online because apparently very expensive high-end tennis shoes are a thing.
Oh, yeah, it's a thing. I don't know anything about it, but it's a thing.
Yes. And then my other son has a brokerage account where he does trading. And I'm not involved because I'm an investment professional. So his dad's in control of that, but he will ask me things. And he's like, the questions he asked me, it's such a great experience. He's like, I shouldn't have bought that because I knew it was going to go down. And it's like, did you know it was going to go down? Or like he's learning so much just by acting, where many kids don't get these experiences and they don't have someone there to guide them.
Yeah.
Right. And my other son doesn't have the interest in trading, and I don't let my other son, he has to own something for a year. That's my rule. So above and beyond that, my other son has no interest, and he won't trade or do anything with his money, but he's been employed for a year now. So he gets a 401k at work.
Wow.
So we had a whole conversation about that. And I thought he wasn't even interested in or taking it in, but then I find out he's telling the family he's so excited about it. Right. So they're listening. So that's me digressing a little bit. Teach them about money, get them in there, get their bank accounts open once they're age appropriate, get them debit cards, get them using their money. It's kind of funny how kids want something so bad. And then when you say, well, you can use your own money, it's all of a sudden not as interesting, right?
Yeah. We were big proponents, both my ex and I, of having the kids work from as soon as they could. And for the most part, these kids pay for themselves. They are 17 and 18. We did help get them cars, and I pay a third, my ex pays a third, and they pay a third of everything. So
Yeah.
insurance and and so then there was choices of what car do you want to get? And here's what this is what this looks like. If they want this car, I'm like, well, that's going to be X amount of dollars for you at that third rate. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Right. So when you have them be a part of that experience, I remember my son, this is going to sound like I think I'm like the bomb as a mom, which I kind of am,
But you are.
but I also fail, a
I
lot
know your
too.
children. You're doing well.
But I literally gave Nick $20. This might have been 5 years ago. So he's almost 18. So let's say he's 13 years old. I'm like, hey, buddy, here. And he's like, what is this for? And I was like, I don't know. You have stuff going on. Maybe you need a little extra spending cash. And he just got really quiet. And then he looked at me, he goes, Mom, he goes, could you give me something to do for this? I really prefer to work for my money. I was like, where did you come from? So
Good job.
I would say at like 17 and 18, I mean, every once in a while they do something. I'm like, hey, I'm going to put some money towards that, or dad will put some money towards that. But for the most part, it's like, hey, do you have enough money saved up for that? And to learn that and to manage it on your own as soon as you can. Now, some kids aren't able to do that, right? I mean, everyone has
Yeah.
different situations. I'm always very cognizant of making sure we understand that everyone comes from a different place. Everyone has different financial levels. We're talking about this conversation. Some people don't have enough to get out of debt right now, right? So I always try to
Exactly.
just make sure that this conversation, we're not necessarily speaking to every single person, and that I never want to come off that I don't understand that some people struggle more than I have. So anyway, I just always like to say that.
Oh, that's very fair. That's a very good point. And
But I think I see many people's kids that they've never worked and they just kind of get money handed to them. And that's a decision that you have to make in your own family. But I feel proud of how we've helped our kids understand their own money and the value of making a dollar, and a value of it. Like, what can that dollar, what can that get you? And what can it get you? And just because you can buy it, should you buy it? Right? That was another thing. And Christopher used to be into like buying clothes from this one store. And he came home and he'd gone to the mall. Not that he went there all the time, but he came home. He's like, man, I saw these like awesome pair of sweatpants. And I looked, it was $60. He's like, that's like a whole shift of work for me. So he's like, I don't need sweatpants that bad. Good job.
exactly. That's exactly how it works.
Yep.
For the education. And the only thing I'd add on that is kind of a related topic. When you have children and money, something that people are fearful and it happens is that people steal their identity. So there's no plan for them having a credit record. But when you have children, I would be on top of that. It's unfortunately kind of cumbersome. You have to reach out to each of the credit bureaus and you have to supply your copy of a birth certificate, your driver's license, and get this done. But you have the ability to freeze their credit until they're older and able to access that. And then when they're 16, 17 years old, they can access it and freeze it themselves.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not exactly an easy thing to do, but even if you don't do that, by the time they're teenagers and getting ready to head off into the world, and that's their whole goal, is to get wings. But essentially where I'm going with that is that there's a site called Annual Credit Report, and you can get an annual credit report for free.
Okay.
I just want to check that. You can go to each of the bureaus to find out how to access a minor's report and make sure nothing's on there. You want that before they go and try and rent their first place to live, right? This is how you as a parent can help them.
Okay. That's great. That's great information. Some of the things you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go on to the last thing, and it is estate planning, getting things in order, powers of attorney. I know there's lots of confusion about stuff like this. So what are your words of wisdom for us all?
Yeah, I'll do the summary and try to express how important this is, because it's something we don't want to think about. And it's actually, for me, all the facets of financial planning, it's one of the most interesting and complex to me, but it's so important. And you mentioned powers of attorney. I can't express it enough. So we just talk about children. When your children become 18, they are now adults. You no longer have access to their health information, right?
Yep.
Every adult should have a power of attorney so that someone else can step in and make decisions on their behalf. And another example is, even if you're a married couple and you've been saving money and putting it in retirement accounts and things like that, things that are in retirement accounts are always in your individual name in your entire life. So what happens if you slip and hit your head, or you have a stroke or something, and you're no longer functioning the same that you were yesterday? Your spouse wants to call in and ask about this account, find out where it exists, or this is the first time you're stepping in, or maybe they're very involved. They have no access to that information because they're not you. Cable bills, things like that, it's just infinitely complicated. You would have to go to court and have a guardian named and et cetera, and it's expensive and time consuming. So everybody needs powers of attorney. And then estate planning is important too, about what will happen to the money that you've saved and you earned. And that's all very important, but the powers of attorney is, I'd say, very top of the list, that people need somebody to step in and take care of things. And God forbid something happens. And as part of that, the last thing I'll add is make sure, if you are a parent, right, if somebody is relying on you for future education costs, or just covering the day-to-day, covering the food and the expenses of having a child. And then above and beyond that, if you don't have children, but you have a spouse that depends on you to pay the mortgage or income, make sure you have adequate life insurance. There's enough examples in my career where that's gonna make or break it on the surviving person's lifestyle. So those things aren't fun to talk about, but that, if you say financial checkup, that's the most important, because you could just, at the worst time possible, your family may be dealing with financial stress, which is
absolutely
not ideal.
Well, and even for, stay-at-home moms, I remember asking a couple of my friends, hey, just double checking, you have life insurance as well. And they're like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I said, yeah, but you have 3 kids and they're 1, 2, and 4. God forbid something happened to you. Does your husband or partner make enough to cover a nanny, a cook, a taskmaster, a family, a home manager, like everything that stay-at-home mom does, right? They always have those tallies of how much a stay-at-home mom should actually get paid. And it's like a lot. They should get paid a lot.
So true, yes. So yes. Make sure you know your worth and get it in dollars and cents. And you can get term insurance very cheap as long as you're insurable. So get that before you can't.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, Danielle, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation, just packed full of little nuggets of things we need to pay attention to and make sure we have in order.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Cathy, for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope all of you have learned something. If something's kind of going off in your head, like, oh man, I've just got to tackle that. My suggestion, just do it. Do it tomorrow. Do it today. I don't know when you're listening to this. So whenever you can, make sure you get those things covered. And like she's saying, as we went through some of these different things, there's so much individuality that goes into this. So finding a financial advisor, an attorney, people that you trust along the way to help guide you in some of these decisions is always a great way to go. So Danielle, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we will talk with all of you soon. Have a great day.